Hey Insider, I hope you are doing well. So basically Insider, I wanted to talk to you about something that I tend to do every single Sunday. And I take my students through this practice nowadays who are on board Success Inside Academy. And this practice is called Self-Reflection Sundays. And I've been doing this for a while now. And normally what I do is I reflect on the person I was last week. And if I can recognize the person I was last week, I know I'm not growing fast enough. But today, because there's 3 months left now till 2019. Isn't it crazy how fast time flies? I decided to basically share with you the 3 things I wish I could tell my younger self earlier in the year. So beginning of 2018, I was just reflecting then in terms of who I was, the things I've been through this week, or I should say this year, and it's been one incredible year, but I believe if I would have known the things I know now, I would have been on that whole nother level. And that's what I'm going to be talking to you about in today's video. Does that sound pretty cool? If so, be sure to comment yes in the chat box below. So, 3 things I wish I could tell myself when I was younger in the early 2018. Now, just to give some idea, this year has been an incredible year for us here at Success Insider in general, in terms of we've now reached over 30 million people. We've expanded the team. I've been able to not only just, for example, travel around the world for myself, but of course, be able to provide back to my loved ones. And that's what it's all about, I believe. Taking, for example, the family out to Tokyo next week on Wednesday. So expect to see some vlogs. And also, my mum's finally agreed, by the way, this is some amazing news. But my mum's finally agreed to be on video. She's a little bit shy, kind of like how I used to be. And she says she's happy, however, to do, I've got the unboxing video. For those of you who are aware of the unboxing, I've got a very special project I've been working for. It's taken me about a year now, and my mum's going to be involved because I've dedicated the whole project to my mum because she's the person who woke me up in my journey 10 years ago. So let's start with the first point in regards to the first thing that I wish I could tell or I wish I could have told myself earlier in the year. Well, the first thing is to mind the gap. For those of you who've been to London before, how many of you have ever been to London, by the way? For those of you tuning in, just curious to know, let me just, if you've ever been to London, be sure to comment in the chat box below. I've been to London. Basically, in London, we've got the London Underground, very famous for saying, mind the gap. And I've always found, in terms of my self-analysis and the pattern I run, my biggest weakness has always been in regards to high stress, high anxiety. For those of you who know my background, I've always suffered from social anxiety disorder, and I've come from a very, very shy background. And even, for example, if you take a look at my family, we've got high stress running through the family. And it's been one of my kryptonites. Social anxiety, I've been able to overcome. I now speak on stages all across the globe, no problem, right? Confidence is quite easy once you know how to become confident. But in regards to stress, I found stress as a pattern that I've had to learn more about to really learn to manage. And if I look back everything that's happened this year, I've always found the times I've reacted without minding the gap is the moment that I always failed in life, in terms of even this year as well as in the past. In fact, not minding the gap in my life, and I'll explain more about what mind the gap means, not minding the gap in my life has even cost me a relationship. One of the relationships I fell into when I was in university, that relationship fell apart after about 2 years because I didn't mind the gap. And what mind the gap means, for those of you who go through a high stress or high anxiety pattern, by the way, how many of you go through that pattern right now? If so, if you are somebody who's naturally prone to stress, be sure to comment, that's me. Because that's a pattern that I've ran for most of my life, and that's why I had to learn how to mind the gap. What you're going to realize inside it is this: there are 3 parts of your brain. The problem is most people aren't conscious of this. We got the conscious brain, that's called the neocortex. We've got the emotional brain called the limbic system. And then we've got the oldest part of our brain called the brain stem. That's the survival brain. Most of the time, the brain that's kicking in is something that's called a subconscious and unconscious, limbic system and brain stem. Now, really to simplify this on a day-to-day basis, the conscious brain is not really in control. When you are emotionally charged, when you are naturally stressed, and if you, for example, have been dealt with some bad news, you'll find you're basically resorting to a habituated behavior called a response. Now, if you don't mind the gap between the event and your response, you always find that's the same pattern you always resort in. Because what you got to realize is the event is never the thing that triggers a stressful response. It's never somebody that causes us to be stressed. It's never somebody who causes us to be anxious. It's, guess who? It's ourselves. And the thing that causes you to be stressed is the way you perceive this event. And so that's something I always got to remind myself. Whenever I am dealt with unexpected news, maybe from a team member, maybe from somebody I'm looking to collaborate with, I got to pause, take a deep breath in, then immediately I change three things. Because the gap is the gap that you got to now allow yourself to have to consciously awaken and then think of the best responses possible. The first thing I do to mind the gap is check my physiology. To interrupt that pattern that you tend to go through when you're going through unconscious behavior, you got to interrupt the pattern. The fastest way to do that is to change the way you're using your body and the physiology, so the breathing pattern. And I've always found when I don't do this, by the way, I've always found if I just react straight away, it's always a bad reaction. Let me ask you, how many of you have ever reacted in a way where you regret it later down the line? You know, I've certainly been there. And if I reflect back on everything I've gone through this year in terms of bad events, bad responses, it's always happened because I've not minded the gap. So that's why I wish I could have told myself, my younger self, beginning of this year, mind the gap. Every time you're dealt with something that's triggering that stress response, mind the gap. Allow myself to pause, reflect, check my physiology, check the meaning, and then check the pattern of focus. If you change those three things before you're going to respond, you always find that is the best way to handle stress in general. And so that is one of the things I've always realized in regards to self-analysis. It's been my weakness, and that's why I always have to remind myself to mind the gap. And the second thing I wish I could tell my younger self beginning of this year is because of so many things I was landing on my plate left, right, and center, I end up saying yes to too many, let's say, projects that sounded really, really cool on paper. And so one of the things I wish I could tell my younger self beginning of this year was to basically align your schedule with your values. And I find a lot of people, even the most highest achievers out there, the most successful people out there, they tend to be the ones who come to me wanting help with this because most people don't really sit down to ask themselves, what is really important to me in my life? And that's something I highly suggest every single one of you insiders, you sit down and think about. What is really important to me? Think about that in terms of the values. And I'm not talking about the means values, I'm talking about the end values. What the end value is at the end of it all, what is the most important thing? Some people say it's money. Well, money is a means value to an end. People want money because they want something. So ask yourself, what is that ultimate value you're seeking? And then align your schedule with this. And note the fact that I'm not saying a to-do list. You see, successful people, they don't use to-do lists, they use schedule. What gets scheduled gets done. And so look at everything that's important to you in your life and begin to schedule everything in based upon your values. And I tell you, every time I've gone against, let's say, values because I'm just overcommitting, I've always found I later regretted down the line. For example, this year, I was glad I made, for example, this is the power of just knowing your values. Beginning of this year, I ended up getting a lot of different opportunities to speak. One of them is called TEDx. How many of you have ever heard of TEDx before, by the way? TEDx is quite a big speaking organization. Some of you might be familiar with it. I was also invited to speak out in Asia again, on another Asia speaking tour. And I was invited to host basically another big event. It was just like left, right, and center. And I got to that stage where I was just like, I got to say no to a lot of things. And I did begin to take control of this middle of the year because then I had too many things on my plate. So I said no to TEDx. I kind of regret in that moment, but I said, you know what, this is not aligned with me right now. So I actually said no. I was like, it's not right for me right now. I said no to the Asia tour. I said no to this. And that was when I could really focus on what's truly important. So that's the second thing I wish I could have said to my younger self. Now, the third thing, the final thing that I wish I could have said to myself earlier this year, and I highly suggest insider that you go through this practice today as well. Remember, successful people, they reflect a lot. And Sundays is the best time for you to reflect. If you're going to take part in a self-reflection practice, by the way, be sure to let me know in the comments box below, and I'll definitely be sure to like and respond back to your post. because it says a lot about you, the fact that you care about your personal development, the person you're becoming. Because some people, they're just living on autopilot. They never really take control of their life. The third thing I wish I could say to my younger self is start everything with a core reason. This is such an important trait. Everything you do, in terms of how many of you are, those of you who are tuning in live, how many of you are in business right now? If you're in your own business, comment business in the chat box below and I'll just give you a quick shout out. If you're not in business, but you're looking to get into business, type in, I'm looking to get into business in the chat box below. Because I highly suggest, by the way, every single one of you business owners, or for those of you who want to succeed as an entrepreneur, or even for those of you who want to go up the corporate ranks, it's so important that you ask yourself this very question. So Simon says business, got Andrew saying business, we got, who else? Got Kanyo saying business. Some people, Andrea saying looking to get into business. Ian says, hello, I'm looking to get into business. Donovan says business. Malte says, I'm looking to get into business. Okay, so for those of you who want to succeed as an entrepreneur, this is so important. Before you commit to any campaign, and this is a mistake that sometimes I have to remind myself. In fact, just the other day, I had to remind myself of this. When I forget this, I always find this is what separates me from success. You see, whenever you do anything in terms of a campaign, any business launch, anything to do with business or anything to do with life in general, ask yourself, what is the actual core reason behind this? The core reason. Look beyond money, for example. What is the actual outcome you're looking to achieve? You see, the reason why most business owners do not succeed on the level they want to get to, for example, scaling from 6 to 7 or 7 to 8 figures, is because they're so focused being in the business, they don't get to focus on the business. You got to be able to see your business from almost like a 60,000 foot like bird eye view and really see where is this ship heading. And the only way you can steer this ship in the right direction is to ask yourself, what's the core reason here? Any single campaign that you're looking to set up, ask yourself, what is the actual core achievement, the strategy? What's the thing I'm looking to have happen? And you want to, every time you do one thing in terms of a strategy or campaign or whatever it may be, you just basically ask yourself, what's the strategy behind this? So for example, the strategic objective of a campaign you may be looking to set up is maybe you want to get more happy clients, you want to get 100 happy clients by the end of the year. That could be a strategic objective. Now, what you do from there is you now focus on tactical objectives. And tactical objectives could be, oh, now I could do more social media posts. Now I could do more YouTube videos. Now I could send out more email blast. The problem is a lot of business owners, they tend to get stuck working on tactics, not on strategies. So what I wish I could tell myself younger in the year is in terms of what's the core reason? Why am I actually doing this? And focusing on the strategy and realizing the tactics, that's not what's important. If you get caught up in tactics, you'll find you're always working in your business. A business owner, our job is to work on the strategy. The team members, remember, they're the ones implementing the tactics. So that's what I wish I keep on reminding. I still remind myself still to this day. Don't get caught up on the ground level. We have to look at it from a skyscraper point of view and just really see where are we really heading. And this is something that I teach business owners all around the world when I'm speaking on stages, when I run these conferences 30 hours long. We get clear in regards to where are we really going? What's the core reason behind, firstly, why we exist? One of my most favorite quotes that was said by one of the business mentors is, basically he said how you should never define your business by what you do. Define it by who you serve and why you serve. And when you get clear in regards to that, you're getting clear in regards to the core reason. Now you want to figure out the core reason behind the business, but then every single campaign. For those of you who don't want to succeed as an entrepreneur, you can still do this in all different areas of your life. Ask yourself, what is that core reason behind why you want to go to the gym? Why do you want to get a pay rise? Why do you want to stay in this company? Why do you want to do that? Get clear in regards to the core reason that's aligned with your values. So those are the 3 things I wish I could tell my younger self. This is a bit of a different video inside it, but if you enjoyed this form of format, do let me know in the comments box below. Next week, by the way, like I said, I'm taking my family out to Tokyo, and my mum's going to be showing her face in terms of she might even give a speech. She's very camera shy, so basically it's going to be quite exciting. So I'll film a video out in Tokyo, and you'll be able to see some behind the scenes, and also you get to meet some of my family members as well. And it's a great reminder for me, because it's times like this when I get to see my mum happy and, you know, take my family out and see the smiles on their face. It reminds me in regards to why I do what I do. And it drives me so much just knowing, you know, this is what it's all about. Just being able to pay forward to the loved ones. Because if I just focus on me, it's just like, what's it all about? I mean, after you get all of the money, it's just, that's it, right? It's just, if you just focus on money, trust me, once you get it, you're like, what do I meant to do next? So those are the three things. The first thing is mind the gap. The second is align your schedule with your values. The third thing is to start everything with a core reason. Now, is it fine if I share with you with like a bonus thing I wish I could share with my younger self? This is like no BS, but I'm going to look into the camera right now and I'm going to speak directly to my younger self, no BS style. And this is like a wake-up call that I wish I had earlier when I was starting Success Insider. Because for those of you who have not been with us for many, many years, let's say, when we started Success Insider in that first year, we ended up going viral all across the globe. We became one of the fastest growing personal development YouTube channels all across the globe. And you can be assured, by the end of that year, I was just like, whoa, you know, I was beginning to get all of this, like, I suppose the ego. I was just like, wow, I must be so good, all of that. And here's a bonus point that I wish I could tell my younger self. Nobody really cares about you. And you're not really that special. That's something I remind myself every single day. That I'm not that special. In fact, I look up at the stars sometimes. When I wake up, going to the gym in the morning, it's really dark outside, and I can see the stars, I can see the moon. I'm just looking up into their space, and I'm just thinking, wow, I'm like a tiny little freaking dot in the universe. The world does not revolve around me. Nobody really cares about me. Everybody features in a movie called My Life. When you really realize that, you have a breakthrough moment and you realize you're so free. Firstly, you're free from ego, because everybody walks around on this planet thinking they're so significant. When in fact, everybody features in a movie called My Life where you're the main actor and everybody else is a side cast. Think about that. In your movie, who's the most important character? Is you. In my movie, who's the most important character? Is me. And in everybody's movie, they all pretend and act as if they're the most important character. And everybody walks around on this planet thinking the exact same thing. What I wish I could say to my younger self, and what I remind myself every single day, is you're not special. Nobody really cares about you. And despite how big your projects may seem, it's really not going to matter at the end of the day. You're a tiny dot in the freaking universe. So don't ever get the ego, or don't ever let ego make you feel like you're great. For me, I have to always remind myself, I'm nothing special. You know, in fact, when I'm speaking on stages all across the globe, I'm speaking in front of like sometimes hundreds of people, like all different ages. And whenever somebody says, oh, Tim, I really admire your work, and they, I don't know, approach me in the airport and stuff, I just say, hey, you might admire my work, but all I'm doing is I'm just holding up a mirror to show you how great you are. I'm nothing. I'm just a regular guy who just follows some strategies, and I suppose I got myself to where I am. But I'm nothing special. If you think I'm some rare human being, I think you got me totally wrong. You know, I'm just a regular human being who just followed some steps, and now I suppose I've been able to create freedom, but that's all it is. Everything's got a system. Everything's got a strategy. I was shy, now I became confident. I learned from people who are confident. So I have to remind myself every single day, just whenever I allow that ego to kick in, because I get it nowadays. For example, when I was meeting the president, straight afterwards, people are like, oh my God, you got to meet the president, Tim, you're so cool, and all of that. And I remember my ego was being filled up. And the very next speech I gave, I told myself, oh my God, I'm so good, I got to meet the president, oh my God, TEDx want me. And I gave that speech. It was the worst ever speech I gave, because I was not humble. I was coming from the ego, and I acted as if I was amazing. And guess what? It was the worst ever speech. The very next speech I gave several months later, I told myself, I'm nothing special. Remain humble in the process, and remind yourself to keep growing. Thank you so much, Insider, for tuning in. As always, follow your heart, my friend, and take action and go live the life you're truly born to live. Have an incredible day, Insider, and I just want to say, whatever you're going through, maybe it's hell, maybe you're going through great fortunes, remind yourself, no matter what you're going through is a part of your life. No matter what it is, remind yourself, this is a moment in your life, and you have a choice to make. Do you want to squeeze every single drop out of this moment? Do you want to get to the end of it all and say to yourself, thank goodness, I played full out? If so, embrace the moment. Don't pray for calm. Don't pray for calm. Pray for strongest winds. Why? Because the strongest trees don't grow in the best soil. They grow in the strongest winds. If life is testing you right now, realize this. It's happening for a reason, because life is trying to shape you into the person you're born to become so you can live the life you truly want to live. I believe in you. Go out there, make it happen, Insider, and thank you so much for tuning in. Have an incredible day.